afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our virtual event with BPP on the topic of how to demonstrate your commercial awareness. I'm just here to give a quick intro and break down the structure of today's event for you before we start, but luckily it's quite a simple one. So from 4 to 5 p.m, we have an hour-long workshop led by Anna Mee, who is the head of law at BPP Manchester. She'll be unpacking what commercial awareness really means, how to develop it, and how to showcase it throughout the recruitment process. And then from 5 to 6 p.m, there'll be a networking session with Johnny Hurst, who is the head of outreach and student recruitment at BPP. And you can ask him all of your burning questions then. You can also check out dozens of the most frequently asked questions related to the SQE on BPP's SQE FAQ page. A little bit of a mouthful. I think there'll be a link to that popped in the chat. And with that out of the way, I'll hand it over to Anna to get started.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ryan. Hello, everyone. So I'm just going to bring up some slides. So as Ryan said, I am the head of law in Manchester at BPP. So that means I do a lot of these sorts of events. We work with staff and make sure the student experience in Manchester is great. I can see there's lots of people who are northwest based, Emily in Warrington, some Southport, some Liverpool, but you may have guessed from my accent, I am actually not from the northwest, and I was raised in the southwest. So hello to, I saw lots of Bristol students appearing in the chat as well. So today we are going to be talking about how to demonstrate your commercial awareness. And I know commercial awareness can sometimes seem like a bit of a dark art and a bit of a scary phrase, but you really don't need to be worried. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But first, briefly, just to let you know what BPP is. So BPP University Law School is a leading provider of professional legal education. We used to say postgraduate education, but actually we have a huge number of legal apprentices who do graduate courses with us working with their employers. So it's that or law conversion courses, barrister training, solicitor training. And what our key focus that we look for is around building careers through education. That's our motto or values that we talk about. And what we have is huge, wonderful connections with the profession. We've got an excellent careers team, pro bono centre. There's a career guarantee, which is around we can offer certain courses if you don't get a job within a certain period of time, and we have a huge number of scholarships. So Johnny will be able to answer lots of questions. But one of the things that's really important to us, right centrally, is about employability, which is where the relevance of this commercial awareness comes in, because we see commercial awareness as being really important. And that's not just in relation to you're applying for a law firm. That's also true if you are applying for a big corporate commercial, a high street firm, a barrister's chambers. Understanding the framework that you work in is really important. As I said, we've got some really strong connections. So as well as these big name firms that we have over 600 employers that we work with, many of them on an exclusive basis. So working with them with apprentices and with postgraduate education. But also some of those, you're seeing a lot of the city firms, which I imagine a lot of you will be interested in, but just with the commercial awareness. But we also have a huge number of in-house counsel teams that we work with to have their trainees and supporting those. So there's a huge range that we are able to draw on. And so we talk to them often with our careers team about what is commercial awareness? What are you looking for? So today, what we're going to cover, we've got what is commercial awareness? What do I see that as? An introduction to some analytical models. Those analytical models are helpful to use and apply so that then you are better able to contextualize your commercial awareness and also to show it properly in your application forms, your interviews, etc. Because it's wonderful to have all of the knowledge about everything that's happening, but it's also really important that you are able to show it in those all important forms and interviews. So starting off, what is commercial awareness? Looking at that quote, I think this is what we would say. It's understanding the role that you play in your organization, who your clients are, what matters to them, and how your role helps them. It's the understanding about business, and it's about understanding the awareness of the purpose of your role, how you or how your organization fits into it. And Christopher Stokes, who came up with that, is a former City partner who has written extensively about law firms, commercial awareness in the city. And you may be aware it's something that is seen as being really important for firms, because remembering whether it is a barrister's chambers, whether it is a small high street law firm, whether it is a company that's got an in-house team, whether it is a law firm, it's really important you remember that they're going to be an employer. I can see some people are having issues with the sound. Let me just.
A couple. Hopefully those Favour and Adam, is that better? Just checking that's all working. Into the backstage team if anyone wants to do that. Okay, Catherine's given me a yes, that's all right. Good. So that's really commercial awareness, and it can be such a big, broad topic. And so I think that is why it feels like a dark art, and that is why it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So I'm going to try and bring you some models to help you break down. So one of the things that a tool that we can use is around SWOT analysis. And I have a poll. So if the lovely legal cheek team, if you can bring up the poll that is, what does SWOT stand for in SWOT analysis? So have a look at the polls and have a look. So is it systems, workforce, operations and timelines? Is it strategy, workflow, objectives and targets? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats? Or is it standards, warranties, obligations and terms? Just having a look to have a think, what does that stand for? So I can see there's been quite a few, there's 120 or so votes. If anyone else wants to have a vote and have a look and see what those things are. When I was first introduced, before I give you the answer, when I was first asked about producing a SWOT analysis, it was part of one of my interview processes. I was on a vacation scheme and I was asked to produce a SWOT analysis that I was then interviewed on. And I thought, what is a SWOT analysis? And I had to go straight away and Google it. So those 133 of you that have voted, and a few more already, and have got the right answer, well done. You were doing better than I was while I was on my law conversion course. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this can be a tool to get you thinking about what is important to a company or in relation to a company. So it might be just doing a SWOT analysis on a law firm or on a company. It may be that you're asked a particular question. So something my firm used to ask was sometimes do a SWOT analysis in relation to where's the next office going to be. And it would be a topical point and you had to do the analysis. And what we mean, as you can see on the side, strengths are those things that are internal factors. So what are they good at? What are they famous for? How is the business structured? Where is it located? Who are the key drivers of that success? Are they up to date with all of their processes, their IT, their marketing? So that's where you're thinking about strengths. You then might be thinking about weaknesses, those internal factors. Maybe that IT system isn't working so well. Those similar questions, you might be thinking, oh, are they weaknesses? You then have the external factors, those macroeconomic issues might be coming out, the wider, bigger picture that's not within that direct control of that organization. And that's where you get your opportunities. Opportunities are something you can take advantage of, that is a good thing, and the threats are those external factors that might impact and make your business more difficult. So you can see on the slide, we've got that you can convert your weaknesses to strengths, on your threats to opportunities, and you want to remedy those areas for your weaknesses and threats. You want them to be remedied. So that's kind of a basic model that you might use in considering that. When you are thinking about external factors, what you might want to think about is a slightly different model. There's a model called the PESTLE model. And so what that means is that stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. So you are thinking, what are those opportunities or threats? And you might be thinking, okay, economic. Tariffs has been a massive issue recently with Donald Trump and making decisions in relation to, and it overlaps with your political, economic changes. Technological and political, AI, where are we doing? How are we reacting into that? Environmental comes up when we think about AI as well. And so this PESTLE analysis is quite useful to be thinking about the different areas that you might be thinking about that could impact a business or an organization. And what's important to note is that there might be things, as I've just highlighted, that sit over a number of these areas. But we also might have items that, depending on the context, would be strengths or weaknesses. Those things that might be opportunities or threats. Okay, so it's trying to think, and it's a good way of framing when you start thinking about analysing a company or a situation or a law firm, how they operate. It's being able to understand what their drivers might be, and then you can work through. Yes, absolutely, Kira. It's not strict. There are lots of different models that you could use. So absolutely, if you want to add a PESTLE plus C, if anyone can come up with a much pithier phrase, then that would be great for them. Whatever you need to get you to remember it is important. But absolutely, that competition is something that you also will need to be looking at. Okay. So something to have a look at now is I'm going to bring up, this is the details of Price Prior. Price Prior LLP, it's the fictional law firm that we use in a lot of our courses, the solicitor-based courses. And what this law firm is, we use it for because we have realistic case studies, and so you're acting as a lawyer, and in some respects you're engaging that commercial awareness in your classes. But Price Prior, I would like you to get thinking about the SWOT analysis for Price Prior. So it was founded in 1924. There are 100 partners. Average age is 57. We've got a grand total of those 100 partners are 12, and 8 partners are from a range of different ethnicities, so Black and Asian solicitors. It's a traditional full-service law firm with 8 big city locations, including London. It's got a slightly old and wobbly computer system and a good, strong client base with high net worth individuals and a ratio, a fee earner ratio of 1 to 3. And just to clarify that point on fee earner ratio, what that means is for every 1 partner, there are 3 fee earners. So that is something that you can hear talked about when you're looking at different law firms to understand how broad their organisation is. 1 to 3 is quite a small ratio, so that's a relatively few fee earners to partners. And it is mostly charged at an hourly rate. So I would like you to have a think about that SWOT analysis. So starting off, and do feel free to pop into the chat, What some of the strengths that you might think, just looking at this? Alexandra said, is this a type of scenario likely to come up during assessment centres? Absolutely. You could have an ask to do a SWOT analysis on a real company and things like that. So Adam, diversity, we'll come back to that one. Strength, office in city locations, yeah, strong offering, lots of different places. Lots of people are saying that. Loyal client base, absolutely. And lots of full service, so they don't have to be looking elsewhere. The experience, it's probably got a good name. It's popping up, it says Tim. Absolutely. Market trust and that historical reputation. Good, Isabel and Owen. Absolutely. So, and Anastasia, I can see you've just popped that in. What's thoughts about weaknesses? What are their weaknesses? Lack of international locations. I could see Mariam put the number of female partners, perhaps, and I think I saw something saying feminism. So it's probably not the best balance if you've got a 12 out of 100, and I'd say the ethnicity mix is probably not very reflective of the UK. Legal tech, lots of people talking about outdated technology. Absolutely, this day and age, that can be a problem. Computer systems, yeah, I can see lots coming in. Super, absolutely. So the fee owner ratio, that's an interesting one. So the fee owner ratio, some places would see that as a strength because that is a very sellable aspect that you can sell to clients. You get really lots of partner contact, but actually that means that it can be difficult, depends on the type of work they're doing. So that could be a weakness in other firms. Similarly, the locations, lots of you talked about the range of locations being 8 different locations. Could be a strength, absolutely. But equally could be a weakness. We've got a lot of different areas in which that you are, if you're working in lots of different cities, you're having lots of different office locations. That's going to increase your costs of your rent. And especially in this day and age where there's a mixture of working from home and hybrid work, you might want to be more concentrated in locations. I've seen a couple of people asking about expanding on why the fee earner ratio might be a weakness. Well, for some people, it might be a weakness because if, for example, you're doing a lot of high value M&A at this point in time, or you might want to have more fee earners because there's so much churn or work that needs to be done and reviewed that the cost of having a partner to do it is enormous. So your fees will become so high that you might become uncompetitive. A fee earner is a lawyer that is not a partner. It could be also a paralegal, Mariam, so I could see that happening. Yeah, Tim, interesting, sector focused. Absolutely. A lot of law firms now are really clear about their sector focus. Good, Lisa. I hadn't seen that. It was flying up. I can see someone has also said the fees would be more flexible. Hourly rate is definitely becoming more and more outdated. I can see a few people actually did pop that in as well. And I did see it flying up. Someone said, why are these not threats? Why are these? And it's weaknesses because it is internal factors. Those are factors about price prior itself. Okay. What about opportunities? What about any opportunities? Were things that we could take advantage of to move us forward, external factors. Any thoughts? This can be harder. So remember thinking about pestle model. Good, Matilda says growth in AI and legal tech. So while we have that weakness of our slightly older IT system, we've got an opportunity that we can move into the forefront by updating now and making use of that legal tech. Absolutely. So yes, they can start looking at that alternative fixed fee, for example, different alternative fee arrangements. Avantika, I like that. Big city firm, big cities are likely to be more diverse. So let's have a look at those locations to expand on that diversity. And similarly, that might be an opportunity to grow our customer base. If they're based in Leeds or Manchester, they're known as really big growth cities at the moment. So we can target, take advantage of that strength and drive that opportunity there. Absolutely. And use that good brand to drive the opportunity to recruit, for example. There's an opportunity to develop sector focus, promote ESG. Absolutely, Oliver. So that's really good. So there's opportunities, and what you can see is those opportunities might be converting some of those weaknesses, that we can start taking advantage of what's out there in the world and moving forward. Now, what about threats? So those are external factors. That we might want, that might be a threat. So AI, can't it? Yeah, see, we've got AI as both an opportunity and a threat. Because I know people already in practice that I've got someone I trained with who's making a comment saying, AI, people are coming like people used to come with WebMD. People are now coming saying, AI tells me this is the answer, do it for me. It doesn't always work. Larger firms poaching those partners, says Haroon. Yeah, that's absolutely good. For those of you saying things like fee earner ratio, remember those are internal factors, not external factors. So those are strengths and weaknesses rather than being those opportunities and threats. Just trying to differentiate that as you are looking at it. Absolutely. Elizabeth, cybersecurity. There have definitely been organizations that have hacks. We had Marks and Spencer's had last year a huge hack with their system, and they were out of action for a long time. We've seen things like the Panama Papers. They came from a hack of a law firm, I'm pretty sure. Huge data breach. Absolutely. Established corporates may move to a company using better tech. Yes, so I think that's probably the external factor there is their competitors. So their competitors and the driving factors that their competitors might have, whether that be better sectoral focus, whether that might be clarity. Political instability. Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, there's been a lot of discussion. I know that Keir Starmer last night was being one of the head of Labour in Scotland was suggesting that he should stand down. That political instability always makes a little bit wary, can make markets a bit wary. So if you are depending on the markets being operating well, and by that I mean corporate entities, public share markets, that can make people anxious to invest, and so it might impact you. Similarly, global tariffs has caused a lot of instability and makes people anxious and worried about spending lots of money. Inflation, Cardo, absolutely. Inflation, everyone is incredibly price sensitive. That's also clients as well. Jen, similar point, absolutely. And Jen, I like your point about individual clients and private client areas. Absolutely. So these are some of the areas that we have got. Absolutely, I think we picked up all of those as we are working through. On that opportunities, the growth of hybrid working, it's pretty good. It's almost going backwards, but it can be an opportunity there. So, and it's just trying to be aware and be thinking about, right, is this internal or external? How is it going to, how does it impact? So it's all very well saying something like talking about tax. I can see corporation tax, capital gains, higher tax rates. It's needing to say more than just that buzz phrase, but actually being able to understand how that might impact. That's where you're going to take you on to the next level. So we're going to have a talk about commercial awareness in the application process. And I've got an example or a potential question that you could be asked. So imagine you've got this application form or an interview question asking about generative AI. And I also have a second poll, if the team don't mind popping on the second poll. So we're asking, this is just a personal question, it's not what you know, I'm not going to report to anyone. Have you ever used any Gen AI tools for personal tasks, so holiday booking, or have you used it for work or your studies, or have you used it for application forms? So I've given you the options. I'm assuming if you're using it for work, study, and personal, you're probably using it for, you might be using it applications as well. It's just to get a see, because I'm sure you understand, generative AI is huge at the moment. We're seeing think pieces about it all over the place. And it is important for law firms too. And what I would say before we get into the detail of this question, and I could see some bits appearing in the chat a minute ago, is it is worth thinking about, oh, this topic seems to be coming up quite a lot. Are there lots of opinion pieces, or in the business world, opinion pieces, or business podcasts or legal publications like Legal Cheek, writing on a topic? If you keep seeing a topic like generative AI coming up in those areas, it's worth doing a bit of reading and understanding and developing your commercial awareness in relation to that area, because it might be a topic that you will have an application form or interview question. So I can see some people have only used it for personal tasks. Some have used it for work as well. Some have used it for 72, have used for all of the areas, so application forms, work, study, and personal tasks. Very small number, 8 people in the poll have never used a generative AI tool. And the reason I was asking, have you used it, is because the temptation might be, if this comes up in an application form, to use generative AI. I use generative AI to come up with this. We've got a legal system called Harvey that we use. It's not necessarily a problem to be using it, okay? But to answer the question in an application form, but what you really need to do is to get under the bones and understand what it is telling you. Because if you get asked this in an application form and you do it all with generative AI, some firms are asking you, did you use AI in creating any of your application form? I don't think that's necessarily a trick. I think you can say, I had it proofread by AI, or I did some search for this. But the other reason is, if you get this in an interview and you have done all of your application process using generative AI, you haven't been flexing that muscle. And I often think that commercial awareness is really like a muscle that you need to build. You need to start getting that understanding and building it up. Because if you try and do it at the very end or in a last minute, in one quick moment, it would be like, I don't know if any of you go to, work out and go to the gym, but it would be like me saying, oh, if I do 2 squats or 10 squats immediately before an interview, doesn't mean that if they say, oh, Anna, can you perform 100 squats, I'm going to be able to. Okay, so it's building that strength so that when you're doing it in a different context, you are able to act on your feet in that networking, in those general conversations around your interview as well. So to have a look at this, generative AI tools are increasingly being used. So how do you think AI will affect the way lawyers deliver services to clients, and what implications might this have for law firms and your role as a trainee? And what you can see here is this is asking you about the hot topic, but it is also asking you to think about the context of that particular topic. And the first thing that I would want you to do if you are looking at commercial awareness and thinking about this sort of question, the most important thing that you do is to answer the question that you have been asked. And there's a slight caveat from that, which I'll come on to in a moment. But if you see this question and you get excited and think, I've read all about regulation of AI, I'm going to tell them all of the ways that AI is not as regulated as it might be. Or you talk about the environmental impact of AI, or I saw someone earlier in one of the other questions talking about the AI bubble. If you just tell them everything about that and you show all of this knowledge about the commercial world, that's not what they're asking. Okay, so focusing in and thinking about what am I actually being asked is going to start you better than just having a brain dump of everything that you know. Okay, so that's the first starting point. I can see someone has said adapting to AI is essential, so you can focus on more technical work. Absolutely. So things like that more judgment-focused work, it's higher value generally that might be allowing you to do that. So it's going to potentially also improve your accuracy with those repetitive tasks. What else have we got? Opportunities for law firms, M&A deals, investments in AI firms. Yeah, Matilda, that's a different point of view, isn't it? That's also it's not about how the lawyers are going to be delivering their services, but that's an opportunity that there is to be expanding and looking at that, working with their own proprietary models. Absolutely. Thomas Allen has said pre-action disclosure work, allowing for removal of irrelevant documentation. Absolutely. Before generative AI, when I was practicing, when I was a trainee, definitely didn't have Gen AI at that point, but we did have AI and flagging tools that were already beginning to do that. So it's definitely going to expand on that. But absolutely, it may impact that hiring. Documentation templates, absolutely, to make sure we get that consistency. Supporting tool, Giletta has said making legal work less expensive. Absolutely. Yeah, Mohammed, that's a good point. Law firms might be expected to deliver more than they previously did. It's absolutely going to impact things like your business model and your billing. So traditionally, like we saw with Price Prior, they might have they were on mainly hourly rates. Well, if you sit there and say, it's £800 an hour for this person, and you're billing out per hour, where's the incentive to use those efficiencies? And clients will want you to be being more efficient, because if you are also given bonuses on the basis of your hourly targets, are you going to do something that makes it quicker? That's one of those interesting points that people are talking about around there. Absolutely, Emily. AI is creating all sorts of complications where people think they know because AI told me, even though AI, having seen some people use it in assessments, which is not permitted in all of our assessments, some of them it is, but using it in a way that it just makes up things. It still hallucinates. They've certainly done tests to check the viability. I think it's Linklaters does a lot of testing regularly to see how different AI models improve. Salma has said Baker McKenzie is cutting their global business services. Absolutely, there is an impact on your business services. And I saw someone also saying it's an issue around the sustainability department. Absolutely. Yes, interesting, Cardo, that White and Case partner, I would agree. You're not going to get rid of lawyers entirely, but if you are able to use it as a lawyer, you will be doing something. I often have said to students that, I used to say this about Google, but at the moment there's a lack of emotional intelligence in AI. And so it might be able to tell you the fact that the sort of law or the legal position, and maybe do a little bit of application, though we do see it's terrible at that, to a specific scenario. It can regurgitate facts. but you being able to sit in a room and understand that right now your client needs a slightly different approach, or to understand that in this negotiation for a massive M&A piece, if we take a slightly different approach, their driver is different. That understanding and those emotional judgment-based decisions, I don't think are necessarily AI. I'm getting distracted by AI. The other implications for trainees, though, might be there's less opportunity to see those little documents because they can be produced so quickly by the associates for you to get your teeth into. There's lots of learning opportunities as a junior that can help drive that and give you that understanding of a transaction in a very safe way. But I would also agree, Carla, it can help with trainees in some respect, decreasing time spent, but also make their experience individualized. It's interesting. I think the lawyer this morning had an interesting Curve article talking about AI being used in advocacy practice, for example. But absolutely, Christina, it's important that you need to get that critical thinking. So those are some of those general things about how you might be thinking about AI. And what it's important that you do is you list out those things and you make sure you pick up how is it changing for lawyers and how would it impact on your role as a trainee, and come to some sort of balanced conclusion. So we're not getting into just AI is good, AI is bad, but thinking about the broader picture. Okay. It certainly is going to change things. I said earlier, the most important thing is to make sure you are answering the question that has been asked. And I can give you a slight caveat for that. This looks almost the same question, and it's a slightly different one. So it's the way we as a firm deliver legal services and what implications might this have for our law firm. You can, when you get a general question about the business of law firms, if you can find ways to bring in relevant information to show your understanding of this business, of this law firm, that's so much the better. It is showing commercial awareness, not just about the world of AI and the world of legal business, but that you understand their law firm, this law firm. I remember being told when I was doing applications that it's not good enough just to be saying, I want to work in an international law firm, okay? Because if you could just replace Freshfields with Linklaters, with White and Case, or Pinsent Masons with Adelshaw Goddard or Eversheds, in the sentences that you're writing, they're not necessarily convinced that you want to work for them. Okay, so sometimes being able to show in these little ways, I know, I have looked at you, I understand you, this organization can really add value to improve your answer to this sort of question. So just to think about that. So that's the same question again. If you were to think about the different ways, all those things that we talked about the different pressures and advantages, those opportunities and threats that AI might be offering, you can have a look and you can see that a large traditional corporate focused firm with large scale M&A transactions, your job as a trainee will be impacted because actually a lot of that very detailed due diligence, for example, or I think someone mentioned about significant with the disclosure process with large cases, that's going to be something that will change. Jen, I'll come on to that question. Remind me as it comes around. I'll try and pick it up around where do you find that information? So a lot of us were talking, a lot of those factors might come into a large traditional law firm model. If we're applying and get this question in relation to an innovative boutique sports firm who advise athletes on complex private client matters, okay, and there are plenty of those firms around, particularly the amount that athletes get paid, they are very good people to have as clients. That volume work, that production or analysis of huge levels of contracts is probably not going to be the same impact. For this sort of firm, they might be looking at innovative ways to bring in clients. I think it was Pinsent Masons, put out something that they are actually working sports teams, not with individuals, but they've got a regulatory framework, for example. Or you might have using AI to help with tax advisory, to make it accessible to your athlete clients. So they are already doing quite a lot of high-level judgment work if it's very boutique and very particular, close, focused clients. It might not be the same impact. There will be an impact. I'm sure I cannot think of any single footballer's name, shows you how much I follow sport. But if you had Lindsay Vonn, who is a downhill skier who's been in the news, if she came in, I bet she might, the types like that will be coming in saying, this is what AI tells me. So you're going to have to manage and work in a different way with AI. And you see, hopefully, that the impact of AI might be different for different organizations. The third example I might give would be a firm specializing in mass litigation, claimant medical negligence claims. An example might be Slater and Gordon, or Irwin Mitchell do a lot of medical negligence work. Again, where there is that pressure, these firms have a huge amount of pressure on their fees and on their margins. They have very cost-sensitive clients because they are individuals, so every penny counts. You've also got a lot of mass litigation processes like the PCP car plans. That's a hot area at the moment. Mis-selling of PPI happened a few years ago and is still ongoing. So that mass litigation, where actually if you're sending, every time someone comes in and says, oh, I've also got a mis-sold car finance plan, you can have those automated systems improved with generative AI. And so again, you might be, as a junior, as a trainee at this firm, you might be overseeing larger portfolios of work because that is driving efficiency. So hopefully you are seeing that the way you answer a question can be reframed or focused depending on the sort of organization, and which is why it's really important that you are not just aware of a general commercial outlook in the world, but the commerciality and what drives a client, whether that be saying, you've got these sorts of clients, or earlier we had someone talking about sectoral focus, so you could understand some of the sectors that they work in. It's certainly a helpful way to be thinking about it. Okay, so that's what I'd be saying. And I know generative AI, there's lots of prompts around what we can do with AI and how you use it in the chat, which is lovely. But the same approach could be for any more general questions. So it won't necessarily be about generative AI. You could have about political scenarios. You could have very open-ended questions that are asking about, if you were advising a board of directors, what external risks or opportunity would you want to make sure they're considering? You could be saying things like, what business or legal news story have you been following recently, and why does it interest you? That's quite a common type thing that they might ask. So it's got an opportunity for you to choose something of interest. But if you could be doing this, of tailoring it and thinking about what's this law firm wanting, you will stand out even more. Okay, so that's some ways about bringing in that commercial awareness. I'm just going to pick up a little, I've got some time for questions, but yeah, so John has said the more for less challenge. Absolutely. That is a continuous challenge, and clients know that people are using AI tools. Carla has said, would it be good practice to acknowledge the AI software, and you could also say legal text, not just Gen AI, the law firm is using if it's mentioned in their websites? Absolutely. So some firms will talk about the platforms. Some firms, as someone said earlier, have invested in platforms in Gen AI and brought these things out. If we've got this sports boutique, if they are known for being very innovative in using legal tech, then you can say, I've seen that you're using this. It's really interesting. How much information would be good to know about the software use? I wouldn't worry about knowing all of the detail, because the thing about commercial awareness and showing your commercial awareness is not about being able to go, here's all this information necessarily. It's about working with the information you have. So building up that information, but you don't need to know loads of detail because you might not get asked about it. And you're better to talk about something you're interested in or bringing components that you're interested in many respects. Okay, because as I said, just that definition again, it's understanding the role that you're playing in your organization, who your clients and customers are, and what matters to them, and how your role helps them. So I can see, as someone said, would you recommend getting better at, how do I recommend getting better at thinking about those contexts? It's just looking at it. It's reading the press. I've got some more tips in a moment, so I will come back to that as we go through. And Mariam's question is, what AI do law firms use? It really, really depends. I think most won't use ChatGPT or Gemini as a standalone. You can get products like Copilot, which is Microsoft's version, which is built on ChatGPT, I believe. But you have a closed environment. One of the biggest risks for law firms is in relation to their data and concerns around that. So it's looking at that. So again, some tips for demonstrating. I've talked about an application form or a question and tried to get into the skin of how you can improve that answer and be building that. So here are some tips. Don't just recite the website content. So I think it was it Jen earlier? Jen Hemborough, I think. Yeah, finding information about law firms aside from their websites. So it's not just regurgitating website content, but you can be looking at places like, oh, I don't know, Legal Chic. You've presumably all heard of it. That will tell you information and gets you thinking about the business of law firms. They often do commentary in that. I hope I won't get told off for saying places like The Lawyer. You can also be looking for general articles about it. A lot of firms and organizations have podcasts. So trying to look around some of those things and have a look. Researching those people and the firms deeply absolutely will help you, and have a looking at that so you are able to understand them so we can adapt it, as I said, including their deals and their cases. As I say, it needs to be kind of something that you're building up. So understanding about the world of legal business and about the business world, if you are interested in a corporate commercial firm, is important that you're building up that understanding over time, because actually focusing in on one firm or another becomes easier if you understand the wider framework in which they're working. Make sure you update it before your interview. You don't want to walk into an interview and go and discover that the company that you were really interested in and that you have been looking at and following for a long time has gone into administration that morning and you didn't know about it, or a couple of days before. So trying to bring that in. Self-awareness in group situations. So again, it's not that wanting to just regurgitate and bring everything out. It's if you're aware, you might be doing this while networking. It might be that informal moment after your interviews, during an assessment center. They are observing how you're interacting with other people. And if you're asked a question as a group and you just plow on and want to say, I know everything, that might not work so well for firms. There's similar. If you sit there and you don't say anything, it can also be something that they go, oh, okay, let's see how you perform elsewhere. Think about other parties' points of view. So some of these areas can be a little bit controversial. Tariffs or Gen AI, lots of people are pro, some people are against. Just being aware of the different opinions and points of view around hot topics is going to serve you well and will help you. It's something that's important. Justifying your statements. So don't just be that person. You know, I saw some people saying about misinformation and false news in the chat earlier. don't be the person who just says, yeah, well, that's true because it's true. It's being able to say, oh, well, I saw an interesting piece in, or I heard a podcast with, I was listening to this podcast and it was very interesting. Do the analysis, explain, go deeper. And what I would say about that is sometimes, with these algorithms, TikTok and YouTube, they throw you down these rabbit holes. What I would say is trying to find those rabbit holes that you find interesting. So whether it be a certain area of AI you go into, I've talked about AI a lot, it's not the only thing, or finding businesses that you are interested in, follow them for a while and think, why have they made that decision? Oh, actually, that's interesting. So I think there was an editorial that I did an interview with for Legal Cheek on this. And it's a clothing company that I like, Tala. I love their leggings. I'm not sponsored by them, I promise. I wish I was. But they'd gone out into the US and then it didn't work because tariffs. So understanding that and going down your little rabbit holes of things you find interesting, what that means is you get a deep knowledge of something. But also, if you are able to show a genuine interest in a commercial area, that's going to shine through, and they're going to think this person's not just learning it for the application, they're actually interested. Okay. As I say, answering the question, don't just show off and tell them everything, and ask questions. And I think on that don't show off point, it's worth saying lawyers don't have time to read everything all the time. So they're not experts on these areas. They're not expecting you to be an expert on these areas. So giving yourself that space to say, I'm not sure about that. Oh, how are you finding that? Or asking someone else's point of view when you've given your own is something that's really valuable. I can see the questions. I will come back round to them in just a moment. So how to do building your commercial awareness. As I say, finding your own rabbit holes, finding those things that you're interested in. The websites we've talked about, looking around other articles. You can enter competitions and be thinking about writing things. Podcasts, for me, I absolutely love podcasts. So listening to loads of daily podcasts that you can be listening to. I think I've forgotten the name of it now. But Rest is Politics is quite good. I love The Rest is Entertainment. They talk about the business of the entertainment industry quite a lot. It can be quite interesting. TV, radio, there's the press, there's journals. Thinking about your non-law work experience, it's really important. Absolutely. Personal reflection, social media with care. There's conferences of things like this. Legal Cheek has lots of sessions that you can join that you can think about it, and just little and often. I did have one person, I did a panel on this, and one of the junior lawyers said she reads the FT on her phone whilst at the gym, which I thought I'd fall over. But listening to some of those, yeah, absolutely, Angel. The FT podcast is good. You can sign up to a lot of newsletters without having a subscription, or check if your university does have a subscription system. Okay, so I'm going to say go to questions, but I am just going to pop. I could see a couple of people saying that tips is a good thing just to put up so you can get a picture of that if you want to. Yeah, lots of podcast recommendations coming in, so you can definitely make use of that. We've got 6-7 minutes to go in terms of timing, so I'm going to try and pick up. Just give me a moment. So are there any not so obvious ways you suggest to build up your commercial awareness other than research, reading, news? Hard to keep up and remember everything going on, even though I'm reading regularly, but it doesn't seem to stick because there's so much going on, says Evelyn. And I can see lots of people have said yes to that. So, and Selma, you said try to focus on the sectors I'm interested in and having discussions with friends, says Haroon. So those are both really strong suggestions. And Evelyn, I hope I said your name right, Evelyn, I would absolutely agree, is finding something that you are interested in and maybe follow it for a while. So set up news alerts for a couple of companies you're interested in and just have a look. And if those companies happen to be the firms that you, clients or type of client, then that can be really helpful. I'm just going a bit further up because I could see some questions up there. Isa Ali has said, commercial awareness be the sole determining factor? No, it was unlikely to be. It's not the only thing they are looking for. I've seen someone ask about psychometric tests. They might be doing that. It's, are you capable? Are you interested? But it will make a big difference. Paulina, what makes an application question successful is there's lots of different factors. So they will have scoring guides of what they are looking for, of what people are looking for. And so they will be looking at that. The other thing that I will say is we do run at BPP, we run various sessions. We have some sessions coming up in our different centres, so in person, and one of those focuses for the solicitor side is on commercial awareness. So if you are at university at the moment, get in contact with, you might have campus ambassadors, or keep an eye out, you might get sent information. We're doing it targeted based on certain universities, and you may also see we put out loads of different events, so have a look at our the BPP website that we might also have freebies. Let's have a look. Any other questions? So Angel's recommending firms, lots of different things. Economist Business, lots of people saying thank you, you're very welcome. Will volunteering help at a law clinic help me apply for commercial law first, says Hannah. Not a commercial awareness question, but absolutely. That is valuable legal experience, and being able to take the law and apply it to that client's scenario, that's commercial awareness in action in a slightly different context. So being able to show that is hugely important. Absolutely. Is it useful to have a basic knowledge of finance and financial terminology? Yes, I think trying to look at some of those jargon busters will help you. It does really help. You can actually use generative AI to come up with commercial awareness questions. I have done that for preparation for today. It comes up with the good ideas. Also sense check it if they give you answers. Using AI as a current story you've been following is a good idea or not? I think a lot of people will be talking about it. I know Johnny, who's in the networking, often says you want to stand out. But I think if you've got a particular interest in it and you've got a different viewpoint, or you've read lots about it in a slightly different, you're not just going to be regurgitating what other people say. It can be really interesting. Don't be worried about that. How to navigate a career pivot that is more public than commercial, private law focused. If you've been working in the public sector, law and understanding of the public sector is vitally important, even for big law firms. So Renita, don't worry about that, but drawing out the skills that you have been using in the public sector to show how those are relevant, that will be something that's really important for you. If I know what practice area I want to go in, is it detrimental to my that only focus on that area in my research? It depends how specific you are, Carrie. If you are thinking, I want to go corporate commercial and I want to work in corporate M&A, and it's quite broad, not necessarily, but it depends what sort of firm you're looking at. So if you only look at super detailed shipping litigation, or only look at sports regulatory, you're going to really narrow your options. So it's really hard. Yes, absolutely. Commercial awareness still applicable to law adjacent careers, 100%. So if you were applying to KPMG, to any of the consultancies, if you're applying to any organization, understanding what is important to them, and if they have clients, their clients, and how they operate is really important. You've named some, like ESG is another hot topic that comes up. Absolutely, Betty. So it's really useful to just build that understanding. And if you hate anything to do with the corporate commercial world, anything to do with the FT, anything to do with finance and money and anything to do with that, I'd probably say working in a corporate commercial law firm and applying to those sorts of firms isn't for you. Go and do something different, because if you don't find any of that interesting, it will come out, and you're better off not doing it, because you'll hate the job if you do get it. If you're preparing for commercial awareness type questions for an interview in a week, listening to some podcasts, finding some topics or companies that you're interested in and learning more about. Ryan, I'm going to hand over. I think we're good.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. So yeah, it's just turned 5 p.m. So we've got to wrap up in time for the networking. A huge thank you to Anna for delivering the workshop. It was really informative. I've learned a lot too. And I hope everyone listening feels a lot more confident in their commercial awareness, applying it and being able to articulate a lot better at interviewing in their applications. But yeah, as I say, we have a networking session from 4 to 5, from 5 to 6, featuring Johnny Hurst, who is the head of outreach and student recruitment at BPP. To join the networking session, all you need to do is click on the Expo button on the sidebar, and then you can go up on stage and ask Johnny all of your burning questions. You can ask them in the chat, or you can go on stage, as I say, put your video on, ask Johnny the questions. Thanks once again for joining us today, everybody, and a huge thank you to Anna once again for delivering the session. Have a great evening, everyone.
No problem. Thank you very much, all. Thanks for being so engaged.